Fallout Season 2 has come to a close, and it's been divisive to say the least. To most people, it's fairly inoffensive, and despite not being perfect, it's still pretty good. But there are a lot of people that really hate this show.
In our opinion, Season 1 and 2 are not flawless or perfect by any means. But overall, as fans of good TV and as huge Fallout nerds, we enjoyed both seasons as a whole. But some people have also said this season is all set up and that they flanderized New Vegas's characters and factions. All because the showrunners have a misunderstanding and overall irreverence to the Fallout universe and the holy grail of RPG titles.
So today, we want to take a larger look at things and not only get into things that we liked about this season, but also dive into the vast amount of critiques and come to a solid conclusion for Fallout Season 2. We mainly want to focus on Season 2 specifically, but a lot of these criticisms are so deep-rooted in the show that we'll have to get into Season 1 a little bit. And of course, we're going to be getting into spoilers, so please treat this as your only warning. So without further ado, let's talk about Fallout.
We want to get into the complaints that others had with this season. So let's begin with something that I can honestly understand and even kind of agree with. And that is people saying that this season is filler and just set up for the next season. We can mostly see where people are coming from here. And even though we didn't care about it too much, this is pretty fair and understandable. Many characters' goals stayed relatively the same or changed ever so slightly. But honestly, is this even a bad thing? Speculation and mystery, even in Season 1, was one thing the showrunners nailed at adapting in their own way. Even in the more fillery episodes, I was having a blast theorizing and speculating not only the history that has taken place 15 years after the ending of New Vegas, but also what the significance of this season taking place here means. Every episode for me was enjoyable and fun as a standalone TV show while being, in my opinion, a great way to introduce people to the Fallout world. But probably the biggest problem people had with this season is that people felt the showrunners have a fundamental misunderstanding of not only New Vegas, but Fallout as a whole, with perhaps the biggest example being the New Vegas factions. And I'll start off with a spicy one. I completely disagree with the people who claim that they flanderized or ruined Caesar's Legion. So the argument is that Caesar and his Legion are both completely misrepresented in this show because
the Legion's civil war is stupid and dumb, and Caesar wouldn't have just ended the Legion with him and not named a successor.
The Legion falling into civil war after the death of Caesar would have happened whether you like to admit it or not. However, I will say you can absolutely argue that it was portrayed in a fairly messy and sloppy way. Having this dual camp civil war in the middle of a valley surrounded by high ground is a little stupid and counter to their tactics and strategies from New Vegas, making the Legion a lot less effective and scary. Not to mention that cool characters like Lanius and Vulpes are replaced with Macaulay Culkin. Most of it doesn't bother us too much since some of these criticisms mostly come down to nitpicks outside of the Macaulay Culkin shit. And there's definitely other things to criticize here. But one point I disagree with the most is also one of the Legion fans' biggest issues with this season. Caesar absolutely would end the Legion this way. No question. Throughout history, cults of personality die with their leader as the faction consumes itself in conflict. And Caesar's cult is so powerful that it has real people indoctrinated into its ideology. Because some of you motherfuckers hold this idiot in way too high of a regard. Edward is a megalomaniacal moron who is solely focused on conquering and gaining power and control. Countless people all across the wasteland, including some pretty smart people, all see what will eventually happen to the Legion. There is no succession plan because there is no Legion without Caesar. That point being being emphasized by his succession letter. There is not one valid option to replace Edward in the Mojave. Volpez and Lanius are either dead or gone and are in no way a replacement or substitute for Caesar. Caesar put these two into their own specific roles based on their own skills to better serve him. Lanius and Volpez are nothing more than weapons and tools to him. Just because they are high ranking doesn't mean they're good replacements for Caesar. We like the way that Marcus puts it, that it's only a matter of time before this happens to the Legion. Regardless of either Lanius or Volpez or whoever becoming the leader, we think it's pretty safe to say we would probably be in a similar situation to the one we have now. And if you say the Courier, you're an idiot. End of discussion. So until they show the Legion Capital and Flagstaff and Caesar Jr. or some shit, there's no point in talking about the revival and resurgence of the Bull. The brain tumor killed it. Mr. House, on the other hand, is certainly harder to defend. He has some questionable moments early on, especially with his introduction. I, along with many others, speculated that this was actually Anthony House or some kind of robot clone, as he doesn't really give off evil genius capitalist mastermind, more like Jared Leto Joker begging someone to hurt him, like a weirdo. Him making the mind control boxes is also pretty strange. He stated that he didn't fuck with slavery in New Vegas, and I struggle to see why he even wants to make this thing when he's got much better shit to do. But unless I'm missing something, I don't really understand the black box's role or establishment in the story at this point, other than just a MacGuffin like Cold Fusion is. So I'm left partially confused and relatively unenthusiastic. Also, what the hell happened to you, dog? Where did you go? Did you go into another Kush coma? Or did the Courier kill your ass and the entity on screen isn't even Mr. House?
So I need you to go get me the platinum chip. I don't really know what it does, but I just know that you need to go get it, and then hopefully we can go to Hoover Dam together. I'll take you and get you a hot dog.
While there were some things I wasn't the biggest fan of, I wouldn't say Mr. House was done badly. In fact, I really like his performance in the latter half of this season. Justin Theroux's acting and depiction of this character was exceptional to me. He stole the scene almost whenever he was on screen. A standout being his showdown with Cooper after Max went apeshit on some Deathclaws invading the strip. Either way, Mr. House was portrayed fairly well in almost every scene, and him having two new pawns in the wasteland is pretty fucking cool looking forward. A lot of people were also mad about how the Kings and the Great Khans were handled, with the Kings being reduced to feral ghouls and the Khans essentially just being normal raiders. And our opinion might make some people mad, but we really just could not give a shit about this. Sorry, but the Kings and Khans don't matter here. I genuinely don't understand getting mad over how they were portrayed here. What? Are you mad that they killed off your favorite tribe of idiots after decades of being beaten and manipulated? Do you want to see where the boomers are? No! Because they don't matter! They are consumed and suffer from their respective abusers. That is their fate.
Who was taken from her mother and put in a cage. I read about, did you say want to it?
In our opinion, it's not really fair to say this is a fault of the show because not every faction in New Vegas needs a prominent role here, especially with the tribes that you can literally beat the game without ever talking to. With the NCR though, we 100% agree that the way they are being portrayed as if they were the good guys feels really weird. Like this season of the show really felt like full-fledged NCR propaganda at times. The faction itself even has a hype moment at the end where they save the day. When if you played the OG Fallout games, you know very fucking well that that isn't their role, and they are very far from the good faction. The corrupt as hell NCR and their tendencies to expand, tax, and commit war crimes themes are part of the problem the Wasteland faces, not the cure-all solution that they tout. We are not huge fans of this overall portrayal of the NCR faction this season. However, to us, this pretty dishonest facade seems like an intentional decision that seems explicitly done for the story that they're telling. From our perspective, it seems like this show is portraying the NCR in a positive light on purpose, and that in later seasons, we will end up seeing the true colors of the NCR with the main characters. Not only do we think that Lucy and Hank's conversation at the end seems to set up and illustrate that point, with their conversation being about tribalism and the NCR Legion conflict, Hank's line that Lucy will understand when she's older really stands out to us, especially because of the fact that this show has done this specific thing multiple times before. Lucy has had this happen with 2 different vaults in season 1, and Max has been having it with the Brotherhood his whole life. And it's possible we will be proven wrong on this, but it really does feel like this season is intentionally viewing the situation through Lucy's rose-tinted glasses and warped understanding of the NCR, because we also have to remember that she was in a vault like a month ago and has no understanding of the NCR's history or their atrocities. But if we are wrong about this and this is just their version of the NCR, then our view on this will absolutely change.
A big thing that a lot of people had a problem with this season is how stupid some of the writing is for the sake of comedy. And this kinda relates to the factions a little bit, but the 2 biggest examples of this are the plot lines with the Brotherhood of Steel and the Vault 33 Incest Club. For the Brotherhood of Steel, the argument is that they are basically nothing like how they are portrayed in the games. Sure, they're still the Brotherhood, but as for how they conduct themselves, they're comically moronic, the soldiers lack conviction to the cause, and worst of all, they have no problem with disrespecting and even destroying technology. Now, I will 100% agree that the Brotherhood is not supposed to act like this, and this methodology goes against literally everything the Brotherhood stands for. But like, yeah, is that not the point? It's very clear that this is a version of the Brotherhood that has very much lost its way. They even verbally tell us this in the show. And this season even illustrates that every chapter of the Brotherhood is like this in some way. Even the envoy from the Glorious Commonwealth chapter, which is said to be much better than the others, turns out to be just as bad as them. And with how long the Brotherhood has been around, them being different in this way is an interesting way to take this faction, in my opinion. But even with that, some will say that the real problem here is that it's played off for jokes, and that they only made this plot so that they can make jokes out of it. And to me, that's just not the case. Don't get me wrong, they're definitely playing it off for jokes, but in my opinion, the entire point of this ridiculous satire is to emphasize the progression of Max's character. At a very young age, Max learned to worship the Brotherhood and lived his entire life desperately wanting to earn the respect from the Knights and the Elders. But in season 1, when Max went out in the wasteland on his own, he came back a different person. He learned to make choices for himself rather than just following orders. And now that he's back, he realizes that these people are fucking idiots. He finally sees that these people he so desperately wanted respect from lack anything worthy of respect. And those things lead him to the decision to turn his back on the Brotherhood. I can totally understand wanting this to be played a little more seriously, but acting like this satire had no point and was only done to tell jokes just isn't true in my opinion. I feel that this satire is successful because it has meaning to the overarching point of this segment of the show, and it still feels in line with the themes and societal critiques that make the Brotherhood of Steel. On the other hand, with the Vault Incest Club, I can kinda see what y'all are talking about. I do like the role it plays in the story, as it serves as Vault 33 facing division due to its water chip problem and conflict with the other now divided Vault 32. And with the theme of this season being how war starts and how big of a role division plays in it, I think this works fairly nicely. The problem I have with it is that the joke just isn't funny. And I actually liked the way they used the incest jokes in season 1. It gave a good visualization of just how fucked up the vaults are, despite seeming like a utopia. And even though this plotline didn't take up too much runtime, I can tell someone got a little lost in the sauce here. And again, if you just wanted these ideas to be taken a little more seriously, I can totally understand that. But I also feel that the plot being derived from a joke doesn't mean they can't do anything cool with it. And at the end of the day, satire is a big part of Fallout, and if they want to explore these concepts in a more satirical way, that's fine with me. There's a few other examples of people pointing out stupid writing in this show, but mostly they just aren't worth talking about and are sometimes just kind of dumb. A lot of people didn't like the communist vault, and I don't really know why. Some people said that it's stupid that they tested the black boxes on American citizens because they'd never become communists. And again, yeah, that's the point. Are we forgetting that the vault is a literal mind control testing facility? The entire point of this vault is to emphasize how effective the black boxes are by turning pre-war communist-hating Americans into full-fledged CCP loyalists. Like, seriously, this is the least subtle shit on the planet. How did some of y'all not get this? This is the type of shit that to me just feels like you really want to not like this show. And of course, it's still stupid that House made the black boxes, but that doesn't really take anything away from this scene to me. To move on from the stupid writing, I want to talk about a critique that I actually had with this season, which is just how corporate and Hollywood the production is. This was present in season 1 with some of the casting decisions and some humor that just reeks of corporate boardrooms, but in season 2, it is a lot more apparent. It's kind of hard for me to explain, but I feel like this is a direct cause of some of the problems with this show. Some characters, like the Legion leader, get completely shafted because all of their lines need to be given to the A-list actor who will poke everyone's heads up. And of course, this is not to shit on any of the cast or production crew. They clearly have a deep love for this project and want it to succeed. And it would be pretty unfair to blame them since this is just the climate that they work under. But also, at the same time, I can say it feels a little weird to watch a dystopian capitalist critique and have fucking Macaulay Culkin in it.
Excuse me, where's the lobby? Thanks.
And to end off the criticism section, I want to quickly target some things that we completely agree with. The Rad Scorpion stuff is pretty stupid. This show just decides how strong the ghoul is depending on if he needs to be written out or not, and it kinda pulls you out of the show a little bit. And oh god, that stuff with the rad roaches was painfully stupid. I don't even think I need to explain this. If Norm was the only one who survived, fine. That's dumb, but fine. But when the one lady who didn't want to kill Norm also somehow lived, I was absolutely dumbfounded. And not even mentioning the fact that the rad roaches just fucking leave. There's literally a year's supply of food just sitting in this room, but the rad roaches just fucking dip. They're gone! But besides from the things that we've mentioned, not a lot really bothered us too much about this season. And aside from just not agreeing with some of the criticisms that have been thrown at this show, there's also just a lot that we really like about it, and honestly feel like it's a much needed breath of fresh air in the Fallout franchise.
I personally had a lot of fun with this season and overall believe that it's not only pretty good, but also feel that the showrunners have demonstrated their understanding and vision for the Fallout universe in a very interesting way. As a big fan of Fallout and coming off of my 7th run of New Vegas, currently playing my 8th, I found it genuinely enjoyable and very in line with Fallout's tone and vibe while still being its own thing. And after so long, it's so nice to get some delicious Fallout after years of getting nothing. Looking back on season 1, Vault Tech's clandestine scheming was probably my favorite part. And with this season, they expand on the previous narrative and have integrated the Enclave fairly well, in my opinion. In future seasons, I'm very much looking forward to how they'll continue to weave the pre- and post-war plot lines into each other. The Ghoul joining the Gen 1 Super Mutant Shadow War against the Enclave, well, just just being speculation, is such a sick idea and a cool evolution of what we've seen on the West Coast with the Master and the Enclave and its major significance to Fallout as a whole. While on the topic of the original Fallout games, it's important to clarify that when we say that this show is in line with Fallout's atmosphere and vibe, we are not trying to say that it's perfectly in line with Fallout 1's intended vision. And we agree that this has been a problem in Fallout for a while. But in our opinion, even though this show is not perfectly in line with the vibe of Fallout 1, it's definitely a lot closer than Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 is. The pre-war narrative overall might have been the best part of this season, and honestly, this show as a whole. In season 1, the Vault-Tec conspiracy with Cooper Howard and Moldaver was such an interesting way to view pre-war America. And with this season, they have expanded on it, in my mind, wonderfully. The vibe and presentations of the pre-war corporations is practically pitch perfect, with Vault-Tec being in the spotlight as grimy, scummy motherfuckers, but expanded with government nonsense and Enclave hijinks. And something that really stood out to us watching this show week to week were the opening scenes. And while some of these are a little strange, most of them are really good. For instance, the parts we see of the Sino-American War, the inclusion and glimpses of Canada we see, and Steph Harper's entire plotline was phenomenal.
She's Canadian.
Like, genuinely, no notes, flawless A+. And the addition of Diane Welch, the freedom-fighting politician who we just call the Bernie Sanders lady, worked so well in our opinion. The way they portrayed this type of politician where they actually have a shred of empathy and want to help fight the system, but ends up playing the exact role the system wants them to, is so good. It's such an accurate portrayal, and her fate is the perfect visual representation of what the system does to people like this. To end off my section of the video, I want to talk about a random scene that really stood out to us. That being Lucy's first conversation with her father in the Vault-Tec facility. Most people talk about the second scene in this setting because of what Lucy says about the NCR Legion conflict, but not only do we disagree with that criticism, but this scene really stood out because, among other things, this is a very enlightening, calm sit-down that we rarely get to see, giving us an external view of what's happening in the Fallout wasteland and the differences of how people understand it. This scene is also very showing of how Hank conducts himself and just how manipulative he really is. During this whole scene, he is overloading Lucy with emotion to force her into making an emotional, impulsive decision in order to get what he wants. And Hank's manipulation tactic with All Quiet on the Western Front was so cool to us. And it makes Hank's actions feel even more methodical because of how much his interpretations of the book aid to his point about people fighting over meaningless things like bottle caps. And with Hank being arguably one of the best characters in this show, the way this sets up his final interactions with Lucy was done really well in our opinion.
To piggyback on what Jamie was talking about with the presentation, I really like the way this season was shot. One thing that this show does really well is just being fun, and I feel like the cinematography and color grading here help bring this out so well. And although I didn't love the Vault Incest Club comedy too much, I am a sucker for when the aspect ratio changes mid-scene, so I really liked the radiation fever part. And finally, we really liked how this show set up the Enclave. I probably could have included this in the criticism section because some people don't like the Enclave being the main villain here because we've seen them so many times before in the games. But honestly, what did you expect? I thought it was pretty obvious they would have included the Enclave at some point or another. Not only have they been directly included in season 1 already, but this show is literally trying to introduce this world to mainstream audiences who know nothing about Fallout. Why would they just not include the Enclave in any way? But aside from that point, I really like the way the Enclave was added into this show. The dual narrative structure leads up to this reveal concurrently, and with the way it was utilized, the build-up feels so natural, and the timing of it all just works so well for me. So yeah, Overall, we really like this show. And despite season 2 not quite exceeding the first, we like it anyway. And if you don't like it, that's totally fine. As we illustrated in this video, there are some genuine things to critique here, and you're not wrong if these things bothered you more than they did us. It's just that there's also a portion of the criticisms that feel a little baseless to us. And a lot of that seems to stem from the fact that some people are not treating this as a standalone TV show and are more so treating it like it's New Vegas 2. Let me explain. It's clear that in this season, a lot of the things that made people mad were just things being different from the original game. The Legion being heavily weakened, the Kings being reduced to feral ghouls, the Brotherhood of Steel going against everything they stand for, etc. And you could say that they should have portrayed the factions more like how they were in the games and done more to tie in with the story of New Vegas. And to some level, I would agree. But I'm sorry, that's just not the point of this show. This show isn't the new mainline Fallout entry. It's not trying its hardest to fit in perfectly with the lore and progress the franchise in immeasurable ways. It's a standalone TV show with its own goals and things it's trying to do with its own story. So not every decision in this show is going to be made with the intention of adding to the Fallout franchise. And it's sometimes going to change some things to fit in with what they are trying to do with the story. And even though this is canon, I genuinely don't think that this will impact any of the factions in future games. Sure, the Brotherhood may be in civil war or some shit during Fallout 5, but I highly doubt they're gonna be acting like fucking goofballs. And even if that did happen, how is that the show's fault? Blame fucking Bethesda for that. Because using a standalone TV show as a revitalization for the franchise is a stupid ass idea. And it also just feels like some people really just wanted the Ghoul and Lucy to do everything you were able to do in New Vegas, but in the show this time. And I'm sorry, that's just a very boring way to view this type of adaptation. I don't need the main character of Edgerunners to also have Johnny Silverhand stuck in his head, or for him to nuke Arasaka Tower or some shit, because that's not what the story is about. They're trying to convey different shit, and all of this revolves around the question of changing things in adaptations. And I have touched on this before, but both me and Jamie have no problem with changing things in adaptations to benefit the story the creators are trying to tell. This new season of the One Piece live action is a very good example of this. They changed and even cut out a decent bit from the original manga. And even though some of these changes aren't particularly better, they still work and don't feel like pointless changes that don't benefit the story in any way. And that's even a different type of adaptation, since it's not making up its own story like Fallout is, and it's actually trying to stay in line with a story that's already been made. And this is also coming from a major One Piece snob. So no, this season is not New Vegas 2 or even the new mainline Fallout thing. And I don't give a fuck if Todd Howard said it is. He's a fucking idiot. And he only said this shit so that he doesn't have to make another Fallout game for another 10 years. And on top of that, I've also seen the sentiment that what this season has done ruins New Vegas. What fucking planet are you on? No, it doesn't. Are we forgetting that Fallout is literally a D&D inspired role-playing game? You decide how the story goes. If you don't like the additions of canon after the fact, you can literally just decide that that stuff doesn't happen in your playthrough. Because that's the entire point of RPGs. You aren't locked into a linear story or decided canon. You decide the canon. And sure, you can not like the canon and wish it was done differently, but acting like it impacts the story of New Vegas in any way is just straight up wrong. But as for the final verdict on Fallout Season 2, we like it. There's definitely some things we hope to see some improvement on in Season 3, but at the end of the day, we had our fun with it. And with that, we are gonna give Fallout Season 2 a collective 8 out of 10. thank you so much for watching. We both really hope that you enjoyed it. This video took a little longer than expected because me and Jamie got sick twice while making it. And for the sake of time, there was a lot that we couldn't talk about. So maybe we'll have more to say when season 3 comes out. And genuinely thank you all so much for the love and support on the last few videos. Despite us still being fairly new to video essays, we genuinely love making these videos and have so much art that we want to talk about on this channel in the future. And if you're interested, I stream Deadlock with Jamie on twitch.tv/NaterV2. We started doing stupid little improv skits at the beginning of some streams, and they've been a lot of fun to do. And if you didn't like Fallout Season 2, I linked a few videos in the description that I really liked despite some disagreements. Because not everyone's gonna like this show. And that goes for every show, honestly. Except One Piece. You'll like One Piece.